There's something they don't tell you about getting older. It's not just about aching joints or the name that slips your mind at the grocery store. It's not even about the empty chairs at the dinner table or the silence that lingers after the children move out. It's something quieter, almost invisible. A slow shift in how the body receives the world. The same food you enjoyed at 40 might now leave you tired. A simple sandwich could weigh you down. And sometimes, without warning, your body begins to feel like a stranger to you. This change isn't about weakness. It's about rhythm. After 60, your metabolism begins to slow. Digestion becomes more delicate, and the body starts asking for a different kind of nourishment, one that heals, not just fills. But most of us were never taught how to listen to these new requests. We keep eating like we did before, unaware that certain foods, once harmless, now quietly chip away at what we still have. Our strength, our balance, our memory, our peace. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, the Japanese doctor who lived past 100, never chased trendy diets or magic smoothies. He ate simply, steamed vegetables, small portions of fish, and barely any sugar. For him, food was never about indulgence. He said, "Food is not pleasure. Food is fuel for your life purpose." He believed that health wasn't just about living long, but about staying light, useful, mobile, until the very last season of life. And modern science is finally catching up. Dr. Mark Hyman, one of today's leading voices in functional medicine, reminds us that inflammation, the slow fire inside the body, is the true driver of aging, and every bite we take can either fan that fire or calm it. Some foods soothe the system and help us stand straighter, remember more, walk farther. Others quietly do the opposite. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not to scare you, not to tell you what to do, but to gently shine a light on the truth. The kind of truth that can still change your days. We'll uncover 5 foods that, while common and even trusted, may be silently working against your body. And we'll also look at 4 humble, often overlooked foods that support vitality in quiet and powerful ways. Because your body hasn't given up on you. It's still listening. Still trying to heal. It just needs you to listen back. It often begins with the best of intentions. You walk into the grocery store with your health in mind. Maybe your knees have been aching more than usual. Maybe your doctor mentioned your blood sugar last visit. So you reach for something labeled low fat. A yogurt, a salad dressing, a granola bar that promises to be heart healthy. The label looks clean, the branding gentle. It seems like the right choice. After all, less fat must mean more health, right? But behind that label, something else is quietly at work. What gets taken out in fat is often replaced by sugar. Not the kind you see or taste immediately, but hidden forms. Corn syrup, maltodextrin, agave, fruit juice concentrate. Additives with names that blur into the ingredients list, unnoticed. These sweeteners don't just flavor the food. They alter how your body responds. And after 60, that response changes dramatically. The body no longer processes sugar the way it once did. The pancreas tires. Insulin becomes less effective. Muscles absorb less glucose. And slowly fat gathers around the waist. The liver becomes sluggish. And the brain, that delicate command center, begins to feel the weight of it all. Studies from the Mayo Clinic have shown a direct connection between high glycemic additives and the accelerated decline of memory in older adults. Not in theory, in real lives. And yet, these low-fat foods continue to sit in refrigerators and cupboards disguised as helpers. It's not about guilt. It's about awareness. Because what seems light on the label may be heavy on the body. And what seems like a small daily snack may be a slow erosion of energy, memory, and mood. But there is another way. You don't need to go hungry or live without comfort. A simple bowl of full-fat, unsweetened yogurt, rich in natural probiotics, can soothe the gut, calm the appetite, and provide lasting nourishment. A vinegar-based dressing, paired with olive oil, can lift a salad into something that protects instead of inflames. And fiber, real fiber, slows the release of sugar, giving your body time to respond gently. Because low fat doesn't mean low risk. It often means hidden trouble. And your body, wise and patient as it is, deserves better than that. They sit quietly on the shelf, bottles of golden promise, canola, corn, soybean, sunflower, oils that became part of everyday cooking sometime in the last few decades. They were affordable. They were promoted as heart-friendly, and for many they became trusted companions in the kitchen, used to fry, sauté, dress, and drizzle. But behind their smooth appearance, something more disruptive has long been unfolding. These refined seed oils are not just fats. They are highly processed, stripped of their original structure, and altered under high heat and pressure. What remains is an oil rich in omega-6 fatty acids, far too rich. And when the body is flooded with these, inflammation begins to smolder from the inside. Not the kind you feel immediately, like a cut or bruise, but a silent, low-grade inflammation that wears down tissues over time, especially muscle, joints, and connective tissue. After 60, the body's ability to rebuild muscle is already more fragile. The repair cycle slows. Injuries take longer to heal, muscles thin out more quickly, and when the oils we consume daily add to that fire, even subtly, the results begin to show, not just in stiffness or soreness, but in posture, in fatigue, in the quiet loss of strength that makes getting out of a chair more difficult than it should be. Harvard researchers have drawn a direct line between the long-term use of these oils and signs of frailty in older adults. We're not speaking of rare dramatic outcomes. We're speaking of the slow unraveling, a kind of premature softening of the body that could have been softened less, lived longer. But not all oils are equal. Nature still offers fats that support, that protect the lining of our cells instead of corroding them. Extra virgin olive oil, with its anti-inflammatory compounds, has been part of Mediterranean diets for generations. Ghee, made from gently simmered butter, has soothed digestion in Ayurvedic traditions for centuries. Avocado oil, rich and stable, carries no bitterness to the body's inner systems. Fat is not the enemy, but the kind of fat, and the way it's made, makes all the difference. Because when your oil clogs your cells, it slows your life. And when your cells can breathe, so can your legs, your thoughts, your will to move. At first glance, it looks healthy. The packaging says whole grain. There's a golden field on the label, perhaps a smiling heart. It promises strength, balance, energy. And after a certain age, those are promises we want to believe. So we buy the cereal, the bread, the bars. We bring them home and feel that small reassurance. At least breakfast is healthy, but what happens next is less visible. There's no immediate crash, no warning, only the slow heaviness after a meal, the quiet bloating, the foggy mind before noon, the digestion that no longer feels clean or complete, and over time the belief that maybe this is just part of aging. But it's not just age. It's what's inside those whole grain foods, or rather what's not. Most processed whole grain products contain what experts call isolated fibers. These are fibers removed from their original sources, broken down, and reassembled to mimic the real thing. But they do not behave the same way in the body. They don't feed the gut's protective bacteria. They don't reduce inflammation, and they don't support the rhythm of digestion that becomes so crucial after 60. Instead, they create confusion for the gut, for the metabolism, for the immune system that begins in the belly. The food moves through, but it doesn't nourish. It fills, but it doesn't fortify. And the body, already working harder to maintain balance, receives another burden rather than support. True fiber comes from whole forms. It comes from food that looks like food. A bowl of cooked oats, not a bar made to taste like it. A tablespoon of flax seeds soaked overnight. Chia seeds that swell with water and kindness. A spoonful of cooked beans, gently spiced and easy to chew. These are the fibers that feed the inner army, the bacteria that protect memory, mood, blood sugar, and immunity. Replacing the fake with the real is not about deprivation. It's about connection with food that was once grown, harvested, and served in simpler kitchens, where ingredients were known and digestion was understood as sacred. Because real fiber feeds your inner army. Fake fiber leaves your gut confused and hungry. And your gut, even now, holds the power to shape how you feel, not just after a meal, but throughout your days. Some foods don't shout. They don't sit in glossy magazine spreads or get paraded as the next miracle. They don't carry labels that promise more than they can give. They simply do their work, quietly, gently, over time. And in the kitchens of long-lived elders, in places like Okinawa, Sardinia, or the quiet hills of Ikaria, these foods are not called superfoods. They're called dinner. The first is sardines, whole, small, and often packed in olive oil, bones and all. At first glance, they seem too humble to matter, but they are rich with what aging bodies crave most: calcium that absorbs without pills, omega-3 fatty acids that calm inflammation, and vitamin D that supports both the bones and the brain. For those who no longer walk as quickly or remember as sharply, these nutrients are not optional. They are a form of repair. And when the spine feels fragile or the memory flickers, a few sardines can offer quiet reinforcement. The second is cooked beets, sweet, earthy, and stained in deep red. Beyond their flavor lies a power often underestimated: their ability to improve blood flow. Beets help increase nitric oxide, a compound that softens and widens blood vessels. This means more oxygen reaching the muscles, more energy with less strain, and a heart that doesn't need to work quite as hard. For legs that tire quickly and hearts that skip with effort, this simple root offers a reminder that the soil still knows what we need. Then there are fermented vegetables: cabbage, carrots, cucumbers, garlic. Not the kind found on supermarket shelves in plastic jars with sugar and vinegar, but the kind left to ferment slowly, naturally. These foods introduce living bacteria into the gut, supporting digestion without the need for expensive supplements. But the benefits stretch beyond the belly. A balanced gut speaks to the brain. It calms anxiety. It strengthens immunity. It helps regulate sleep. And for those who wake up tired or drift through the day in a fog, this quiet harmony in the gut may offer the first thread of clarity. And finally, pumpkin seeds. Often tossed aside after carving or overlooked in favor of flashier snacks, they carry one of the most vital minerals for aging well: magnesium. This mineral supports deep sleep, eases muscle tension, balances blood sugar, and reduces inflammation. A small handful, raw or lightly roasted, can be the difference between a restless night and a restful one, between cramps that wake you and mornings that begin with ease. These foods are not loud. They do not promise what they cannot deliver, but day by day, bite by bite, they support what matters most: your strength, your memory, your peace. In the blue zones, no one called them miraculous. They just ate them, regularly, with gratitude, and the years responded with kindness. There's a certain silence that comes with aging. It settles in the room when the phone rings less often, when the legs don't move as quickly as they used to, when memories flicker like old photographs left too long in the sun. But perhaps the heaviest silence of all is the one that surrounds the question we ask without words: is it still possible to feel strong again? That question often hides beneath other questions. Why am I always tired, even after sleeping? Why does my digestion feel heavier, more stubborn? Why does my mind seem slower, like a radio losing signal? These aren't just signs of aging. They are signs of imbalance, of a body asking, quietly, patiently, to be understood in a new season of life. What we eat in these years doesn't just fill the stomach. It speaks directly to the parts of us that we no longer see, but deeply feel. The joints that ache before the rain, the muscles that tremble after a short walk, the heart that feels tired, not just from movement but from memories, from loss, from carrying so much. Food then becomes more than fuel. It becomes conversation. And in this stage of life, that conversation must be clear, respectful, and kind. Many of us grew up in a time when meals were simple: a piece of bread, a spoon of soup, something from the garden, something from the pan. There were fewer packages, fewer promises printed on boxes. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Our plates filled with additives, our kitchens filled with shortcuts, and our bodies, slowly, began to show the signs. And yet, we were never taught how to respond to these signs. We were told to take another pill, to blame the years, to accept the fatigue, the confusion, the inflammation as part of the price of growing older. But that isn't the full truth. The truth is that food still holds power, quiet, daily, accessible power, to support healing, clarity, and resilience. Not through extremes, not through trends, but through wisdom, both old and new. Dr. Hinohara, who lived and served others until the age of 105, often reminded people that the purpose of eating was not pleasure alone. It was function. It was to sustain the body for walking, for helping, for being useful in the world. His meals were small, plain, repetitive even, but he lived with a lightness that many younger people envied. Not just a light body, but a light spirit. That kind of freedom comes not from chasing indulgence, but from choosing with intention. And this is where food becomes more than health. It becomes liberation. Because when we begin to choose foods that support the body instead of burdening it, we begin to feel a shift. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually. A little less bloating after meals, a little more clarity in the morning, a sense that walking across the room doesn't take as much effort as it did last week. These are small victories, but they matter because they remind us that change is still possible, that strength is still reachable. Modern science echoes this quietly. Dr. Mark Hyman and others have shown that inflammation, the kind we don't see but deeply feel, is at the root of many of the conditions we associate with aging: memory decline, joint stiffness, unstable blood sugar, chronic fatigue. And much of that inflammation begins with the foods we consume every day without thinking. Sweetened yogurts, industrial oils, breads that promise whole grain but deliver little nourishment. They're not poisonous, they're not evil, but in the context of an older body, already more sensitive, already working harder to keep balance, they become burdens. Replacing these foods isn't about punishment. It's not about perfection or following a list with fear. It's about noticing. It's about reconnecting to how your body feels after a meal. Not how it tasted going down, but how you feel an hour later. Are you foggy? Are you bloated? Are you agitated or sleepy or swollen in the fingers? The body always answers, if we listen. And often the answer is more honest than the label on the package. The foods that support healing at this stage of life aren't exotic. They don't require a special store. In fact, they may already be near you. In the pantry, in the freezer, in the back of the cupboard. Small fish like sardines. Beets cooked until soft and dressed with olive oil. Seeds soaked overnight. Vegetables left to ferment naturally. These are the foods that ask little of the body but give so much in return. And when these foods become more frequent companions, not rules, not restrictions, but choices made with care, the results are rarely dramatic. Instead, they are steady, a more restful sleep, a morning without stiffness, a bowel that moves without effort, a face that looks back at you in the mirror with just a bit more light. This is what matters, not chasing youth, but honoring the body you have now, the one that has carried you through so much, the one that remembers every laugh, every injury, every embrace, and every goodbye. That body deserves your attention. It deserves to be fed with food that respects it, not overwhelms it. You do not need to transform everything overnight. You do not need to fix what has already passed. But you can choose differently now, one small thing, one quiet change. And from there, a new rhythm begins. Because each food you choose is either planting a seed for strength or one for struggle. And even now, even here, your soil is not barren. It is waiting. Waiting for kindness, waiting for care, waiting for you.